Introduction. This is where it starts. You're on the bench in the trainer's office, knee-wrapped, season uncertain, and your brain is about to make a decision that will shape everything that follows. The injury that teaches you to see. You're sitting on the bench, not the bench where players wait for substitution. That bench has energy, anticipation, the coiled feeling of almost. This is the other bench, the one against the wall in the athletic trainer's office, where the paper crinkles under your legs and the air smells like adhesive tape and rubbing alcohol. Your knee is wrapped. Your season, or some piece of it, is wrapped with it. And here's the strange part. The physical damage has already happened. The ligament tore, or the bone cracked, or the muscle shredded its fibers 3 days ago. The surgeon or the trainer has explained what went wrong, what will heal, how long it will take. The body has a plan. The body, in fact, has already started executing that plan. White blood cells flooding the injury site, laying down the scaffolding for new tissue before you even left the examination room. But something else is happening that has nothing to do with your knee. Your brain is injured too. Not physically. No concussion, no bruise on the cortex. The injury is structural in a different way. The entire map of who you are has just had a road ripped out of it. And what your brain does next will determine not just how fast you recover, but whether you come back as the same athlete, a lesser one, or, and this is the part no one expects, a significantly better one. How can losing something make you better at it? Most people understand injury recovery as a mechanical process. The tissue is damaged. The tissue heals. You do your rehabilitation exercises. You rebuild strength. You return to play. Like fixing a flat tire, you patch it, you inflate it, you drive again. And that model makes sense for the body. Bones do knit. Muscles do regrow fibers. Tendons do reattach. The biological machinery of physical repair is ancient and reliable, refined over 400 million years of vertebrate evolution. The mind, though, doesn't work like a tire. Athletes know this intuitively, even if they can't name it. The body can be ready. The surgeon clears you. The strength tests come back normal. The range of motion is full, and something still feels wrong. You hesitate. You protect the leg that doesn't need protecting anymore. You flinch before contact that wouldn't have made you blink 6 months ago. The conventional model says, this is just fear, and fear fades with time. It almost works as an explanation. In the early 2000s, a team of sports psychologists at the University of Minnesota began tracking injured collegiate athletes, not their physical recovery, which was well documented, but their psychological trajectory. They measured anxiety, identity disruption, motivation, and emotional processing at regular intervals from the moment of injury through full return to competition. What they expected was a curve. Devastation at the start, gradual improvement, confidence rebuilt as physical capacity returned. A line that started low and climbed steadily upward, roughly mirroring the body's healing. That is not what the data showed. Some athletes followed that expected curve, but a significant portion, roughly 40%, showed a pattern that made no mechanical sense. Their psychological recovery stalled completely at a specific point, usually around the time they were physically cleared to begin sport-specific training again. Their bodies were ready. Their minds had stopped moving. And a smaller group did something even more confusing. Their psychological markers didn't just recover, they exceeded their pre-injury baselines. They came back with measurably lower competition anxiety, stronger focus, and a more stable sense of identity than they'd had before they ever got hurt. Same injury, same rehabilitation protocol, same team, same coaches, same support staff. Completely different psychological outcomes. The difference wasn't in the body. It wasn't even in the severity of the injury. It was in a single cognitive skill that some athletes performed naturally, others learned, and many never attempted at all. Psychologists call it acceptance. But the word is misleading. It sounds passive, like giving up. What actually happens in the brain is closer to the opposite of giving up. It is one of the most demanding cognitive operations a person can perform. Here is what acceptance is not. It is not telling yourself the injury doesn't matter. It is not pretending you're fine. It is not forcing positivity or repeating affirmations, or deciding to stay strong. All of those strategies share a common feature. They require you to argue with reality, to spend cognitive resources maintaining a position that contradicts what your senses are telling you. Your knee hurts. Telling yourself it doesn't take work. Constant, invisible, exhausting work. Acceptance is the opposite move. It means allowing the full weight of the situation to land. Yes, you are injured. Yes, the season may be affected. Yes, this is unfair and painful and disorienting, without adding a second layer of struggle on top of the first. Think about it this way. Imagine you're holding a heavy backpack at arm's length. The backpack is the injury, the pain, the frustration, the lost playing time. You can't put the backpack down. It exists. But you have a choice about what to do with your arms. You can keep holding it out in front of you, fighting its weight, muscles burning, attention locked on the strain. Or you can swing it onto your back, accept its weight against your spine, and free your hands. The backpack doesn't get lighter. Your experience of carrying it transforms completely. Neuroscience reveals why this works, and the mechanism is specific. When you resist an emotional reality, when you argue with pain, fight against frustration, or refuse to acknowledge loss, your prefrontal cortex enters a state of sustained conflict monitoring. This is the same brain region responsible for planning, decision-making, working memory, and attentional control. The resources it spends managing the emotional conflict are resources it cannot spend on anything else. Researchers at Stanford studying emotional suppression found that the effort of hiding what you feel impairs your ability to remember, to process information, to perform other cognitive tasks. Not slightly, but measurably. The prefrontal cortex, locked into the work of suppression, loses capacity for everything else it normally does. Continuously, in the background, for as long as the suppression lasts. Which means the injured athlete who is spending energy pretending everything is fine is essentially solving calculus problems every waking hour while simultaneously trying to rehabilitate, attend classes, maintain relationships, and prepare for return to play. No wonder they stall. Acceptance clears that bandwidth, not by removing the emotion, but by ending the war against it. And when the prefrontal cortex is no longer occupied with suppression, something remarkable opens up. The athlete can actually see clearly. This is the second layer, and it changes the shape of recovery entirely. Once the mental resources trapped in emotional resistance become available, injured athletes gain access to a cognitive state that healthy, competing athletes rarely experience. They can observe their sport from outside it. A soccer player who has spent 3 years on the field has been inside the game, reacting, executing, competing. Every practice, every match, every drill has been experienced from within the flow of performance. This builds extraordinary skill. It also builds blind spots. You cannot examine the system you are embedded in, for the same reason you cannot read the label from inside the bottle. Injury removes you from the bottle. Athletes who practice acceptance, who stop fighting the reality of being sidelined and instead turn their freed attention outward, begin to see patterns they never noticed. They watch film differently. They notice tactical structures. They observe their teammates' movement with the detached clarity of a coach rather than the reactive awareness of a competitor. They study the game instead of playing it, and this studying happens with the full, uncompromised power of a prefrontal cortex that isn't burning energy on emotional suppression. This is not consolation. This is not looking on the bright side. This is a measurable cognitive advantage that is only available to athletes who are not currently competing, provided they have the psychological skill to access it. The 40% who stalled in the Minnesota data never performed this shift. They spent their rehabilitation fighting the injury psychologically, suppressing frustration, performing optimism, arguing with the reality of their limitations. Their prefrontal cortex stayed locked in conflict mode. Their eyes stayed inside the bottle. The smaller group who exceeded their baselines did something specific. They acknowledged the loss fully, the grief, the frustration, the identity disruption, and then redirected every freed cognitive resource into 2 channels. First, the rehabilitation itself, approached not as a chore to endure, but as a skill to master with the same intensity they brought to their sport. Second, the observational advantage, studying their sport with the clarity that only distance provides. They came back not just physically healed, but cognitively upgraded. They had seen the game from a vantage point available only to those who step outside it, and they carried that vantage point back onto the field. This means something that cuts against nearly every instinct an injured athlete has. The urge to fight the injury, to grit your teeth, suppress the frustration, perform toughness, feels like strength. It feels like the competitive fire that made you an athlete in the first place. But neurologically, it is the most expensive possible response. Every unit of cognitive energy spent fighting reality is a unit unavailable for actual recovery, for learning, for the rare and temporary gift of seeing your sport from the outside. And it means something else, something wider. The skill of acceptance, of ending the argument with what is true so your mind can engage with what's possible, does not apply only to athletic injury. It operates identically in every domain where loss, frustration, or unwanted change locks the prefrontal cortex into suppression mode. A bad grade, a broken friendship, a family upheaval, the mechanism is the same. The bandwidth freed is the same. The clarity that follows is the same. That bench in the trainer's office, the paper crinkling under your legs, the smell of adhesive tape, the wrapped knee. Your brain is already doing something with this moment. It is either spending its resources arguing, this shouldn't have happened, I need to get back, I can't let this affect me, or it is setting those resources down, feeling the full weight of what is real, and turning its attention toward everything that just became visible. The injury hasn't changed, what you can see from here, that has only just begun to come into focus. Conclusion. Acceptance clears the bandwidth. But bandwidth alone doesn't get you back on the field, because your body may heal before your brain believes it. Next, you'll learn why the most dangerous moment in recovery isn't the injury itself. It's the day the surgeon clears you.